Okay, some people have found this. I'm going to see if I can put the link to this on
It's
the
6 o'clock.
other stream. Don't know if this will work. Okay. Well, I'll delay this a few minutes. I got tangled up in the YouTube interface again. They keep changing it on me. I did something wrong. I kind of screwed up the previous link. It's not working properly. So give it a couple more minutes. Hopefully people can stumble in here. Uh, I put up on the description on the other stream. I put this link. Give it 1 or 2 more minutes. Still, I bet you there's people fumbling around looking for it. Okay, let's get started. We got what we got. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So today I'm going to present the last in this long series on Abhidhamma. And this will be on conditional relations, which comes from the 7th book of the Abhidhamma, the Patana. And it's maybe the most obscure and difficult part of the Abhidhamma. The Patana itself is a huge, sprawling book. In the Siamese script edition, it runs to 6 big volumes, over 3,000 pages. Um, there's no, as far as I know, there's no complete English translation. And I don't believe there's even a complete Roman script edition. It's the seventh and last book of the Abhidhamma. And what it deals with is the different types of causation. How one Dhamma, or actually that's overly simplified, how Dhammas act as conditions uh, for other Dhammas. The general idea of causation is very important, is central to Buddhist philosophy. In the suttas, we have the dependent origination, which is the uh, explanation of causation in the case of a sentient being, particularly a human being, through the 12 nidanas. And probably many of you will have at least some familiarity with that teaching. The general underlying principle of the dependent origination is that this arising, that comes to be, this ceasing, that ceases, which is a general expression of causality. And this becomes very important in the development of Buddhist thought. In the discussions about right view, one of the ways the Buddha talks about right view is to critique what are called the two extreme views, that is, eternalism and annihilationism, and proclaims that his view is the view in the middle path between these two is the dependent origination. In the world, eternalism and annihilationism, in modern language, we might say materialism and creationism, are polar opposites, and they always seem to be adversaries, intellectual adversaries. But from the Buddhist point of view, they both of them share an underlying fundamental error in that they both adhere or rely in the end, in the last analysis, on some denial of causality. Eternalism, the last analysis, always falls back on the arbitrary will of a creator. And annihilationism or materialism, the last analysis always falls back on randomness, or what the Buddhist texts call fortuitous arising. So Buddhist explanations of the world always rely on this principle of causality. Nothing arises by chance, and nothing is purely arbitrary. Everything arises due to causes and conditions. Now, in the Abhidhamma, and particularly the Patana, which is the main source for what's called conditional relations, or a detailed, minute explanation of causality on the level of dhammas, of individual dhammas, there are further principles that are elucidated. Not just, it goes beyond saying because of this that arises. It says that no Dhamma arises without a cause, and no Dhamma arises from a single cause. And no Dhamma that acts as a cause or a conditioning factor results in a single event. So it's right from the beginning, it wants to very strongly make the point that we're not talking about a simple linear sequence, but rather a multidimensional network that the Dhammas are constantly coming into being, acting as causes, going out of being, and new Dhammas are arising in relation to other Dhammas and to the past Dhammas, connected by causality. And to analyze the workings of this causality, the Patana gives a scheme of 24 conditional relations. And I would refer you to the file I prepared that has a brief summary chart of these 24 relations. The link is in the description, and it's also in the chat. So these conditions describe particular mechanisms of connection or causality between the conditioning factor and the conditioned factor. And the categories, the particular factors or pachayas, they're called, meaning the particular conditional mechanisms, they're called pachayas. They are not exclusive categories. They overlap. There can be one or more or several pachayas operating in each connection. And the list itself has some redundancies in it. Karuna Dasa, whose book I've been relying on for this series quite a lot, he makes the point that the number 24 seems to have been chosen somewhat arbitrarily to make a nice round number so that it can be easily broken up into groups to explain different aspects. If you remove all the redundancies from the list, you get either something like 18 or 20, depending on how you cut it. But in any case, the classical list is 24. And to give you some idea or some flavor of the thinking behind this, we'll go through these 24 different causal factors. There's a hetu pachaya, root, the root condition. These are the roots. This is the conditioning power or factor that comes from the roots, the hetu, and those are 6 in number. There's greed, hatred, and delusion, and their opposites: non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. So the 3 roots of ill and the 3 roots of good, and they act as powerful conditions for our actions, that are comically effective actions when we act with body or speech in the world. The actions come from one or more of these roots, and they're also effective at the moment of rebirth linking, determining the type of birth. The next pachaya is Aramana, or object, which is the connection between the object of consciousness, a sight or a sound or a smell or a mental idea acts also as an object. And that causes consciousness to arise onto that object. So remember, we're talking about pachayas. We're not talking about a thing. It's not like a Dhamma. It's a relationship. So there's always a relationship between the conditioning factor and the conditioned. And here with Aramana or object condition, we have the action that an object produces on consciousness. Adipati is a predominant causal factor, meaning that it's a cause that is strong and dominates over other causes and has a stronger conditioning power. Because remember, there are several pachayas or conditioning factors that can overlap or occur simultaneously. But when you have an adipati condition, that means it's something very strong that's influencing the subsequent states. And the examples given are very strong sense objects, like something that's very powerfully impinging on the senses, either something very beautiful and attractive or something ugly and terrifying, or very strong odor, or a loud noise, something that really impinges strongly on the senses. Or the other example that classifies as adipati are the four idipadas. The idipadas are one of the lists of spiritual powers or faculties that we develop to our benefit, and those are consciousness, meaning in this case is chitta, and it means the consciousness is directed or controlled. Chanda, or zeal or enthusiasm. Virya, energy, and vimamsa, investigation. So when those are present, they act as predominant conditioning factors. They have very strong influence on all the other states in the mind. Anantara is a proximity in English, proximity condition. And this means that there is an immediate arising of the effect. We have the conditioning factor immediately followed in the very next moment by its result. And this applies specifically to the mental stream, the mind arising moment by moment, as we discussed in one of the previous videos on the cognitive series. Consciousness and its associated states are arising again and again in a continuous series, unbroken. There's no gap between them. This is called a proximity condition, because this arises immediately, has its result immediately afterwards. There's no time lag from one mind moment to the next. And next we have one of the redundancies in the list. After Anantara, we have Samanantara, which ends up meaning exactly the same thing. Sahajata Pachaya is translated as co-nascence, which means, which is a kind of fancy Latinate term in English, but it means being born at the same moment or arising at the same moment. So there's even less of a time lag here, because the conditioned and the conditioning factors arise simultaneously. And the examples here given are chitta arising together with its chittasakas. If you recall, when we talked about um, the various factors in the mind, there's always, in each moment, there's chitta, consciousness, but consciousness never arises alone. It always has a suite of other factors that go along with it, a retinue, various things like feeling and perception and intention. These are called the chittasakas. And they arise at the same moment, the same instant as chitta, but they are conditioned by chitta. So it's a relationship of co-nascence. And the same relationship applies to material dhammas of the four great elements. Each of the four elements, when we discuss matter, the Abhidhamma theory of matter is that in a single unit, we might say an atom or a molecule of matter is called a kalapa, and that consists of a minimum of 8 separate dhammas, and the four great elements and various other uh, secondary factors, secondary dhammas, and these all arise at the same instant, and they're conditioned. Each of the four great elements conditions the other three and conditions the secondary factors. So this cause and effect relationship can be simultaneous as well as in a sequence. Anya-manya, mutuality, is, again, this is a bit of a redundancy in the list. It's almost the same as the previous one, the connascence, except that here there is a mutual relationship. They act, each factor acts, each dhamma acts as both a cause and a condition. And the examples given are exactly the same as in the previous one. The mental states condition each other, and the four great elements condition each other. Nisaya is a support condition, one state serving as a base of support for another state. And the example given is the workings of the sense organs. The physical organ of the eye acts as a base or a support for the mental state of consciousness, eye consciousness. And the relationship between the two is given here as Nisaya. And then a variant of this is Upanisaya, in which a past state can serve as a powerful influence on a present state. And the example given is previous experiences, sense objects in the past that have made a strong impression on the mind, and then they can have a very strong influence on subsequent mental states into the future. Purejata, pre-nascence, meaning something arisen before. This is a state that arises first and then has an effect on something arising subsequently. And this only applies to matter affecting mind, or body affecting mind. And the examples are sense consciousness, the sense organs, and sense objects. Now, the reason there's this time difference is because a mental moment is 16 times shorter than a material moment. This was spoken about in a previous video, speaking about mind and matter. There's a different time scale for mind, and as the Buddha said in the sutta, that mind, nothing changes quicker than mind. And this is enumerated in the Abhidhamma to say there's 16 mind moments occur for one physical moment. So they can't be absolutely simultaneous. One has to arise first. So the matter, in this case, the matter arises first. That is the physical base of a sense organ, and then consciousness is conditioned by that and arises subsequent to that. The opposite of this is the next one is Pachajata, post-nascence, or arising later, which an already existent state is influenced by a state which arises afterwards. And this refers to mind affecting matter. Previously, we spoke about matter conditioning mind. Now, this is mind conditioning matter. So, the mind can have influence on the body. I mean, a trivial example is, if I lift my arm, at first I have to establish that intention in my mind, and then the mind moves the body. And again, there's this time differential because mind and matter are on two different time scales. So in this case, the matter has arisen first. My arm was already there before the intention arose. I'm speaking very sort of loosely or metaphorically because I'm speaking about macrocosmic objects like my arm, but it's actually composed of innumerable dhammas, and Abhidhamma is dealing with how things work on the level of dhammas, but it plays out in that way in the expression in the body. But there's also other effects that the mind can have on the body. One example that comes to mind is what's called the placebo effect, how the mind can heal the body, and the mind can make the body sick. If you're constantly worried or depressed, you're going to have physical symptoms. So the mind can affect the body, and the body can affect the mind, and their mutual conditioning are expressed in these two pachayas, the purajata and pachajata. Then we have the asewana pachaya, which is a repetition, which is the mind moments that repeat, copy each other, gather strength. They become stronger, more influential or powerful as conditioning factors. And one expression of this is memorizing something. If you memorize a Pali chant, for example, you would repeat it over and over and over until it becomes easy to do. And that is the asewana pachaya at work, that you're basically, to use a metaphor, you're like digging a groove in the mind so that the cartwheels run easily in that groove. And this asewana pachaya, you could also relate that to habit-forming kamma. And when we do something over and over again, it becomes habitual. It becomes what's called an habitual kamma. And this can be either good or bad. We can establish, we all know how easy it is to establish bad habits and then break them. But we can also establish good habits. Like if you make a determination to meditate every day at the same time, whether you want to or not, and you just do it, and even you overcome resistance and just do it, then that becomes eventually a habit, and it becomes easier and easier and becomes just something you do without any particular fuss. So you can establish good habits or bad habits, but it's the same underlying mechanism at work in both cases. And kamma pachaya, which refers to the operation of kama, and this operates on different levels. Um, it works through the mental factor of cetana or volition, and uh, it's works on one level and very immediately, that the cetana or the volition is one of the universal mental factors, and it conditions every other mental factor that arises together with it. That's like more than instant kama. It's immediate. It's a simultaneous kama. That the cetana bends the other mental factors, conditions them. But it also operates on a longer time scale, that any action done volitionally has a kama effect that can be experienced. The result of that can be experienced at some later time, even in a later lifetime. And in Abhidhamma terms, it's the pairing of mind moments, from a volitional mind moment of kama to a resultant mind moment of vipaka. And the link, the connecting factors, is pachaya, the pachaya of kama. So the subsequent experience that may be many lifetimes in the future has been conditioned by that mind moment when the kama was made. Vipaka pachaya is the resultant factor, but here this is a little tricky to understand what's meant here. Vipaka is used in a more general sense to mean result of kama, but here we're talking about pachayas or conditioning factors. So the conditioning power of vipaka is to uh, subsume the other mental factors that are present um, into line with the process of kama. So this is like the active part of a resultant moment. The mind moments are either comically active or comically resultant, and there's a third category of functional. But um, in terms of kama, we can simplify it to say those two. So kama is when you have free will, when you make a decision, and vipaka is when you have the result of that. You have an experience that comes through the senses or through the mind that is a result of previously made kama. And vipaka pachaya, the conditioning power of the vipaka, is just to bend the other mental factors into accord with the power of the kama. So it's like acts like an intermediary of from kama to the other mental factors. Then there's a hara, a nutriment, and this includes both physical and mental nutriment. Physical nutriment is obvious, is food. Mental nutrient is sense contact, volition, and consciousness. And these act as causal factors to preserve or make subsist factors that have already arisen. So on a large scale, it's what the food in your belly is what keeps you alive. It causes your organism to subsist. But the Dhammas, moment by moment, continue their pattern because of being sustained by this nutriment factor. Indriya pachaya is the conditioning factor of faculty. Indriya means faculty. and they are predominant factors, but in a narrower sphere. We talked about adipati pachaya, which is predominance conditioning, which means a very strong influence from the past that determines the state of the dhammas at the moment. The faculties operate similarly, but in a more narrow range. They have a particular sphere they operate in. The example or the metaphor given is that adipati is like the king that rules the whole kingdom, and the faculties are like his ministers that are in charge of the economy or defense or transportation or whatever it might be. And the faculties, there's a list of 22 faculties, but only 20 of them are considered to act as conditioning factors. And those include the sense organs, the life faculty, the 5 spiritual faculties, that is faith, wisdom, mindfulness, energy, and samadhi, but and also feelings, vedanas. These all act as faculties and causal faculties. Jhana pachaya is the cause of close attention, and it's expressly stated that we're not exactly talking about jhana as the meditative absorption, but it's related to that in that the jhana factors act to activate the mind to be able to focus on an object. So whenever you're closely attending to something, paying close attention, then this causal factor is operating to bring your mental faculties in line with the object. Magga pachaya, this is the path faculty. These are mental states that align towards a goal. And the best example of that are the Eightfold Path, which aligns towards Nibbana. But we can also have a negative version of that. Instead of Samaditi, we have Michaditi and so on, which bring the mind away from liberation and immerse one deeper in samsara. But in terms of acting as a conditioning agent, although they head in opposite directions, the energy or the process is similar. The conditioning factor here is the alignment towards a goal. And sampayutta pachaya is association, a mental state that causes other states to arise with it in close association. And these are mental states that have 4 things in common. They have a common sense organ, a common object. They arise at the same time and they cease at the same time. So this is the causal factor that binds together all of the chittasakas at a moment of sense impression, that everything's aligned towards the sight or the sound. And the states arise in very close association. So this is a causal factor that's mind to mind, mental to mental. The next one, vipayutta, or dissociation, is the relation of mind and body. Mind and body cannot be as closely aligned as mental state to mental state. It's said it's like oil and water mixing. They're 2 different substances, and they can influence each other, have an effect on each other, but it's not as intimate an association as one mental state to another. And examples given are the moment of rebirth linking, mind that arises together with body and influences the particular form of the body, whether it's a human or a dewa, male or a female, healthy or sickly, whatever. This is all physical form that's conditioned from um, past karma originally, but the factor operative is the mind. And the uh, the other example is works the other way. It's matter or body affecting mind, and that's the sense organs. The operation of the sense organs obviously affects the mind. It presents objects to the mind. So this factor vipayuta deals with the interrelationship of body and mind. Ati pachaya is the presence condition. It's and this is now where the last few were into redundancies here that pretty well covered by um, previous conditions, but as a category, awigata or non-disappearance refers to, or ati refers to one state conditioning another, and that includes, it's a very general term, and it includes the states of pre-nascence, co-nascence, and post-nascence. And then we have awagati non-disappearance, which is just another name for this previous one. And then nati pachaya, absence, which is the disappearance of one state causes the appearance of another. And this applies to mind moments in a series. And it's the way it works is a mind moment ceases, then it creates a space or an opportunity for another mind moment to arise. The two moments can't overlap, they can't exist simultaneously. So the new mind moment, one of the factors causing it to arise is the absence of the previous moment. And this is called nati or absence condition. And the last one in the list of the 24 is vigata pachaya, which is the same as the previous one, is a disappearance condition. So we have this list of 24, and you can see it's quite complex, and I've run through it actually quite quickly. And there's a lot of details I've simplified and run over. Some of the general themes to bear in mind are relationships between mind and body, and body and body. Now, the different causal factors work in different ways. And also time relations, whether um, the conditioning factor precedes the conditioned factor, or whether they arise simultaneously, or in some cases, actually, the conditioned factor can arise first, and then the conditioning factor arises subsequently and influences it. It changes its direction somewhat. And this only occurs in the case of mind influencing matter. In the Visuddhimagga, there is a chapter on the dependent origination where Buddhaghosa melds the Patana scheme and the dependent origination Paticcupada scheme. He goes through the 12 nadanas of the Paticca and explains them in terms of the 24 conditional relations. I could recommend that to anybody who wants to delve a little deeper into this uh, complex matters of the patana. That's a good approach. If you're already familiar with the sutta presentation of the 12 nadanas of the Paticca Samuppada, having them explained in terms of the 24 conditional relations can kind of tie things together, bring things together nicely. And before leaving the topic of conditionality, there's one more, if you're not already overwhelmed with these details already. There's one more scheme that actually comes in the commentaries uh, of categories of causation on a more general level, and this is the five niyamas, uh, or sets of laws that govern the operation of the universe. And those are utu niyama, or temperature laws. Is a literal translation, but it's more like physical laws, things like in our modern terminology we'd say like geology and meteorology, physics perhaps, explaining the natural phenomena. Bijaniyama was a seed law, which is like genetics. It's the how organisms transmit characteristics over generations. Dhammaniyama, or the laws of Dhamma, which are the more um, metaphysical, let's say, laws like the three characteristics and the four noble truths, dependent origination. There's Kama Niyama, which is the operations of the laws of Kama, and there's Chitta Niyama, which is really what we've covered in this Abhidhamma series, particularly the cognitive series. It's the operation of how the mind works, and these five laws are given as, first of all, uh, a more precise explanation of the idea that nothing arises randomly, everything has causes and conditions. And secondly, to expound or expand on the Buddhist statement that karma is not the sole cause, which was held by some thinkers of his time, that karma is the only causal factor. And the Buddha said, no, there are other causal factors. And then the commentary fleshes that out to say what they are. And if we relate this to the Abhidhamma principle that nothing arises from a single cause, everything arises from multiple causes, then when we look at any event that occurs, and we try and explain it in terms of causality, we have to take multiple factors into account. Um, for example, let's just make up an example. Let's say that you have a small accident. Um, you're going down your stairs and you slip on the ice, and and kind of hurt your ankle or something. There's multiple causes going on there. One of them is indeed karma, because it's a principle of Abhidhamma that we've talking about the cognitive series, that a result sense experience is always a karma resultant. Is classed as resultant, all sense experiences. So that means that one of the previous causes for everything you experience through your senses has to be previous karma. So somehow you made some bad karma in the past that results in your experiencing this painful sensation of falling down on the stair. But that's not the only cause. There's also the cause of utunuyama, the fact that it's cold in the morning and there's ice on the step. That's utuniyama. and the law of gravity, which would probably also be classed under Uttaniyama, that causes you to fall downward. This Bijuniyama, because you inherited from your ancestors a bipedal body that is a little bit unstable in certain conditions. So there's always various causal factors operating in any given moment, and it's extremely complex, and it's um, really impossible to unravel all the causes that apply. But with these various schemes, the dependent origination, the 24 conditional relations, the five niyamas, we can get a general picture of how causality works. And if even if we can't explicate all the details, we can get a general overview and an understanding of the nature of things. So we'll go to questions now, and that concludes my series on Abhidhamma, and I'll start something new for next week. I don't know. I haven't decided yet what it'll be, but we'll see. I kind of like this idea of doing a series to get in depth on a topic. So we'll try and think of something during the week. But go ahead now if you've got any questions, particularly just it doesn't, because particularly since this is the last one of this series, feel free to ask more general questions, particularly if they relate to Abhidhamma. But if you have any questions that come up from this particular presentation, they would be especially relevant. Yeah, yeah, I do too. I kind of it gives me it gives me a reason to kind of refresh myself on in the details of some of these topics too. Okay, Miroslav's asking, Ajahn, how would one interpret the first verse in Dhammapada? Um, Mano Pubanagama Dhamma using Abhidhamma causality um, lens. Um, yeah, mind is the forerunner. Mind precedes the body, like the cart precedes the horse. Um, I would explain that in terms of Abhidhamma. Um, Oh, that would be, there's many kind of levels you could approach that. One would be that the particular body that you have, whether it's human or animal, male, female, whatever particular form you have, is determined by your previous karma, and the karma was made in the mind. So, in the dependent origination, at the first moment of conception, which is what's really meant by jata or birth, is conception, is consciousness arises in the womb together with the matter. And Abhidhamma explains that they arise simultaneously. It's a co-nascent causality factor that mind and body arise together in the womb, and then consciousness acts as a causal conditioning factor for the particular unfoldment of the body. Would it be accurate to refer to Nibbana as home? Well, I don't know if it's accurate, but it's a common metaphor. have to always be careful talking about nibbana that we're not taking things too literally. It has been referred to by Ajahn Mahabua, for example, likes to refer to it as your true home, like going home. Um, but other analogies are the far shore or the island, uh, the safe, secure refuge. Um, and these are kind of poetic illusions. As long as you don't take it too literally, and don't get stuck on literalism with these descriptions. Okay, now we're getting a few questions all at once. First one. In general terms, noting the time that has passed between Abhidhamma and the death of the Buddha, how much weight should we attribute to Abhidhamma compared to the suttas? Yeah, that's a good question. I think I can't really give a definitive answer to that. It's a matter of a personal judgment that there. Traditionally, the Abhidhamma is attributed to the Buddha. It's supposed to be the teachings he gave at Tawatingsa Heaven, and the Abhidhamma is kind of a summary of the teachings he gave to the Dewas. And that's the whole story has got quite a lot of beautiful details. It's a very evocative story, but it's really kind of mythical. And it doesn't really stand up to historical scrutiny because the Abhidhamma texts between the different schools of Buddhism, the early schools, it's all pre-Mahayana schools. There were 18 pre-Mahayana schools of Buddhism, and they all had quite unique Abhidhamma collections. I think it deserves my own opinion, if I can speak that way. I think I wouldn't give it the same weight as the suttas, but I give it a lot of respect. It's something that was very carefully worked out by senior followers of the Buddha in a period not too long after the Buddha's death, when the tradition was still very fresh. And it's really just a working out of the details of what the Buddha taught. It's not really inventing anything new. Ajahn, in your example of tripping on the stairs, you said it can be past karma. Just to clarify, do you mean the immediate past karma of stepping on the stairs or karma from a previous birth? I meant karma from the past, which might be this lifetime or previous lifetimes. That there will be, you made some karma that will cause a painful resultant in the future. And it may take many years, may take several lifetimes before that karma expresses itself physically. Is suffering the main driver on the path from some point onward? Yeah, uh, it is actually an important motivating factor. In the Upanasaya Sutta, which is called Bhikkhu Bodhi calls it the transcendental dependent arising. It's a variation of the dependent arising that doesn't just go around in a circle, but actually breaks out and leads to liberation. And the key point there is from suffering to faith. And that's where you diverge from the samsaric dependent arising and set out on a new path. Suffering is a motivating factor that causes the arising of faith. if Ananda had asked the Buddha to live for an eon, would be able to meet the next Buddha. No, no. There cannot be two Buddhas simultaneously.
It's 7 o'clock.
No, so the Buddha didn't live for an aeon, and I don't think that I don't think he would have had any intention to do so. It's also that particular passage has been discussed quite a bit, and actually in the commentary, so the very early interpretation of that passage, when it says the Buddha could live for an aeon, the word in Pali for aeon is kappa, and the commentary says what he really means is not a world kappa, but an ayu kappa, meaning a lifespan. So, according to the commentary, mind you, what the Buddha was actually saying is, if I chose, I could live a full lifespan, which would have been considered a full human life at the time was considered 100 years. To say that Devas live for 576 million years, does that mean the next Buddha will come in 576 million years? No, it doesn't mean that at all, because he's already been, we don't know how many years he's already been in the seat of heaven. Should we view suffering as a gift as it leads us to faith? No, I wouldn't call it a gift. I would think it's like a reminder, a wake-up call. And the suffering in itself, in and of itself, is not of any value, but it does lead to faith in that we want to get out of it. Are there any specific causal patterns outlined with reference to how factors of the Noble Eightfold Path work in conjunction with one another and in relation to other circumstantial variables? Yeah, if you go into the Visuddhimagga section on Eightfold Path, you get into some of these more technical descriptions. But what is the one important point there is to distinguish between the Lokiya and Lokuttara, that is mundane and supramundane path. The ordinary Eightfold Path, like you're going through your life and trying to live according to the Eightfold Path. That's the mundane level, and that's the best you can do most of the time, and that's bringing you towards the transcendental path, which is what occurs at the moment of breakthrough, like the moment of stream entry. It comes in two steps. First, there's path, then there's fruit. The path is when the Eightfold Path factors come together on the transcendental level, aligned to Nibbana. And then in the next moment is the realization of Nibbana, or the fruit. But it's still the Eightfold Path, but it's translated to a higher level. How can Mara control one of Brahma's attendants if he's from a lower realm? Is it possible for a Deva from a lower realm to be more powerful than a Deva from a higher realm? Yeah, that is also something that gets discussed in the commentary, because it seems like an anomaly. If other people may not be aware of the story, there's a sutta where the Buddha visits the Brahma Baka in the Brahma realm, and Mara takes over the mind of one of the lesser Brahmas and causes him to challenge the Buddha. And it's stated in the commentary that that's as high as Mara can reach, is the very lowest level of Brahmas. So the Brahma that Mara got into was a Kayaka Brahma of the first level. So it's the very lowest tier out of the 16 tiers of the Brahma world. And that's as high as Mara can possibly reach. And he can't, uh, even there, he can't influence them into sensuality, but he can muddle their view and their perception. There are no conflicts in the higher heavenly realms, so the Devas would be naturally keeping the five precepts and making merit. But why they go to a bad destination when they pass away uh, from that realm if they were naturally keeping the precepts? Um, well, they don't. I don't think you can even say that they sensual Devas entirely keep their precepts. Um, they certainly break the precept of not taking intoxicants. They they have various kind of intoxicating beverages and substances that they take in their realm. There's stories about that, um, and they're heedless and indulging in sensuality all the time. So they make no generally. I mean, there's some wise devas, but most of them generally don't make any further progress. So when they've used up, even if they don't break any precepts during their deva span, they don't make any good merit either. So when their lifespan runs out, if they haven't made any um positive karma, then it can be some old karma from previously when they were human that causes them to fall and take a lower rebirth. Is it not the case that most people, having encountered suffering, naturally find the Dhamma due to the Four Noble Truths? The catalyst to walking the path is always the encountering of dukkha. Yeah, I think it is. I think that's true. Generally, people come to the Dhamma because of suffering. There's like two inducements. Suffering is the stronger one generally, but there's also for some individuals it's more a desire to know, to understand, seeking of wisdom, and that can be, the two can be present in different degrees in different people. It's like the carrot and the stick. Get out of suffering and learn the secrets of the universe. I thought one couldn't visit a higher realm, just lower realms. No, there's numerous instances of. I wouldn't say numerous. It's much. I think it's much more rare, but there are stories of um, beings from lower realms visiting higher realms. The four great kings commonly go up to attend on the gods in Tawatingsa. Um, and there's stories of human beings visiting the lower sensual heavens, being taken there by the gods on a visit. Can Parinimata Vasawati Devas create things themselves? Do they have to rely on Nimarati Devas to create things for them? I I would I don't know if they can. They probably can, but they don't want to bother. They're it's sort of like they've reached this sort of peak of sensual existence where they live a completely useless existence, being catered to their every desire without even having to lift a finger, without even having to turn their mind to creation. The other devas create things for them, which kind of says something about the sensual existence. That's the peak, the highest you can go is a kind of completely useless supine kind of existence. Is the teaching of Dhamma more available in the higher realms? No, it's less so. It's one of the advantages. There's various advantages human beings have over devas, and one of them is opportunity to hear the Dhamma. It's much more present here than it is in the higher realms. Is Shiva from Sutta Nipata 221 the same Shiva as the Hindu god Shiva? I don't think so. Um, it's probably just a coincidence of names because Shiva doesn't really appear as a significant deity in India until much later than the Buddha. Can there be more than one Brahma in the Mahabrahma realm? If you master first jhana and die, will you be born in Mahabrahma realm or the realm below it? Um, there are numerous Mahabrahmas, but um, there'll only be one for this world system. Uh, but there are many Brahmas in his realm lesser than him. Like he's the chief Brahma, but there are two levels of Brahmas below him, all in the same realm, and they are numerous. And the particular birth you take depends on the degree of your mastery of the jhana. So to become a Mahabrahma, one would have to be a very highly attained master of jhana, but just having some degree of ability to enter jhana, you'll be reborn as a lesser Brahma. Is there in any of the 31 realms a realm occupied by benevolent beings such as Christians may call guardian angels? No, that I don't think there's a whole realm of that. There are some uh, devas in the lower dewa heavens who sometimes um, can uh, take actions in the world, in this human world, and they're not always benevolent. They're never really malevolent or evil, but they're sometimes mischievous or troublesome. But they sometimes are helpful. They try and uh, guide human beings towards the Dhamma. Will Dhamma disappear from the world? Yes, that's the prediction that the Dhamma will decline and disappear, and the Dhamma must be completely gone and forgotten before the next Buddha will appear. What language do Devas speak? Can they speak any language? That's an interesting one. Buddhaghosa says that they naturally speak Magadhi, which is the vernacular form of Pali, and he also says that Magadhi is the original language, which really makes no historical sense at all. But that Magadhi is like the root language that all other languages derive from, and the Devas just naturally speak it. Uh, Practically, I don't know. I don't think there's any way we can know what language the Devas speak. They may communicate more simply mind to mind. They may not have really a language as we know it. If time and history breaks down to sense impressions and derivations of that, and memory is not material, are all the worlds mental in nature and imaginary? That was held by some schools of Buddhism. Um, uh, are what I the way I interpret the Theravada teachings is that there is an external world, there is a reality, but we never actually directly know it. We live in a simulation created by our perception, but it's based on inputs through the sense organs from an external reality. So there's some gray area there, like what is actually real. All we ever never really know. All we know is our own perceptions, and they can be skewed. Can any Devas become the new Mar? They have to be from Parinimita Vasavati. Yeah, they have to be Parinimiti Vasavati. That's who Mara is. He's always in that realm. Are guardian angels that bring good fortune simply good karma? Yeah, I would say that. People want to personify impersonal factors. Like I give an example of bad karma, just a trivial example, like slipping on the step. But I mean, you can have good karma. You can walk out your door and see a $20 bill lying in the street. That's some good karma. That's not doesn't mean an angel put it there. The reason I ask is so many conflicting ideas with regard to practice. I have been wondering if it's already disappeared. No, no, the Dhamma's not disappeared. We are in a Dhamma declining age. Um, so we would expect it to be getting more muddled and more confused, but it's not extinct yet. Is incense burned to attract devas? No, incense is burned as uh, a kind of symbolic offering to the triple jewel. It's not meant to attract devas. Is keeping 8 precepts or 10 precepts more meritorious in generosity? Um, I don't know if you can weigh one against the other. Probably in terms of results, yeah, maybe it is. Maybe keeping the 8 or 10 precepts would be more meritorious because they would tend to their renunciant precepts. They would tend to lead one out of rebirth. Eventually, they're tending in that direction. Where generosity tends towards a better rebirth. Generosity by itself doesn't lead out of rebirth. Unless I suppose I should qualify that even a little bit more. The generosity could, if it's coupled with renunciation, like if you're giving of your substance rather than just of your surplus. Since I have ADHD, I find completely dry vipassana more effective. Is stream entry possible with just this? Yes. Yeah, vipassana is the is the key. Most people find it very difficult to do without having developed samadhi. But if you're able to do just dry vipassana, and that's sufficient. In general terms, how common or otherwise is the attainment of stream entry in the West, particularly in regard to lay people? I don't know. I can't answer that because I don't think anyone's ever done a survey. I mean, it's possible it happens, but how common it is, it's impossible to say, especially because there's so many people out there who think they're stream enters and they're not. Can you explain what the fine material realm is? What do Brahmas look like? Um, Fine material realm is a very loose translation of the Rupa Loka, the realm of form, which is the level of the cosmology where Brahmas live. And the Brahmas have a basically human-looking form. They're androgynous. They're not male or female. They have no sexual characteristics, but they look like very well-formed, perfect humans without any sexual characteristics. Neither male nor female. What is dry vipassana? That's referring to just doing vipassana without doing any samatha practice, which most people find very difficult, and it's not recommended for most people. It is mentioned. It is mentioned by the Buddha as one of the possible ways through, but he doesn't talk about it much or expand on it. Mostly when he talks about meditation, he's talking about the jhanas. Okay, so I think I want to conclude for today, and we'll pick up again next week. And hopefully next week I'll get into the stream without technical problems. Okay.